At least from my perspective in Dallas, Gen Z is super fired up for Tellerico. Well, the only Gen Z Republicans are neo-Nazis and pedophiles, but I repeat myself. You know, it doesn't surprise me that Gen Z would be coming out for Tellerico. Yeah, there's no denying right now that the overall political environment has slanted very heavily blue. Especially considering the fact there's a very real possibility that diesel is up to like $6 or $7. That one was for you guys. That's how I get the big bucks. Make sure to like and subscribe and donate if you can, or even if you can't. Remember, even if you don't have the money to donate, your mom probably has a credit card. No, I'm sorry. We don't even accept credit cards on the site. It's just PayPal. Your mom's PayPal. No. Really though, the democratic environment is looking real good for us right now. Diesel might be up to like fucking $7 a gallon or more by election day, by November. Genuinely, the skew blue is probably due to gas prices and Israeli genocide. Yeah, it's worth remembering that none of this translates into general support for the Democratic Party. The support for the Democratic Party right now is still low. The National Democratic Party is in debt. Unironically, the DSA just got a windfall today. The DSA has more money. What the frick? The DSA has more money than the National Democratic Party. I know that sounds like a joke. It's actually not. The DSA has millions more than the National Democratic Party right now, which is in debt and has leveraged their headquarters for a $15 million loan. So like it's yeah, I know, what a time to be alive, right? Now, what really matters here is not the National Democratic Party's money. What it means is that the National Democratic Party, the DNC, I'm just going to say DNC, is not going to be able to shore up weak races. It's basically down to every individual candidate. If the National Democratic Party doesn't have money to toss towards the local races, it means that every candidate's pretty much up to their own when it comes to fundraising. Which is not great for us because the Republican Party has over $100 million to toss around nationally. Man, look at this though. Ohio +8, Iowa +4, man. Okay. What is this polling right here? When is this from? July 29th? Why the fuck are they polling Collins against Plattner? Plattner's only losing by 3 points after dropping out weeks ago? The fucking Collins is barely beating Plattner's ghost? Okay. God, Collins is so fucking hated, man. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. North Carolina. God almighty. Is this the beginning of a power grab by the DSA? And listen, as much as I want to aura farm, it's really, really important to remember that the DSA, if you look between the DSA and the DNC right now, the DSA is the only one actually respecting and listening to the wishes of the Democratic constituency. What is a party but the will of its voters? The DNC tells you, no, good things aren't possible. You're wrong. We did everything right in 2024, and it was your fault we didn't win. The DSA is like, we actually have a transformative vision for the future, and we have legitimate criticisms of the fascism enabling within the Democratic Party, the ineffectiveness of the legacy candidates. The DSA isn't engaging in a power grab because a power grab implies that it's some nefarious behind the scenes, you know, it's a hostile takeover. Nah, dog. The DSA is just giving a better pitch to the voters. That's how democracy is supposed to work. Yeah, power is being left on the table. The power in a democracy is in the hands of the voters, and the voters are craving something better than what the DNC has offered, and the DSA is offering it. It's that simple. God almighty, look at this, man. I can't believe if we actually win, and this is probably like overly optimistic, a 9-point win for the North Carolina Senate seat. What a fucking unbelievable. Is this actually the good timeline? No, we're all still gonna die. We're all still gonna die. Don't worry about it, man. It's fine. How does DSA know when someone has skeletons in their closet? Excellent question. In reality, like vetting is a how do I put this? I don't think it's that difficult to vet a candidate if you have the resources to do so. You basically send out detectives who comb through their history, their social media history, their personal history, and phone up their partner, their exes, everyone, and you're like, hey, no, level with me, like, be real with me. How is he? You stalk them, essentially. You gang stalk their ass. Troy Jackson, Francesca Hong, their asses have indeed been gang stalked by the DSA. It's basically the only way to do it, you know? Is this the kind of thing a PI would be hired for? Yeah, yeah. This is the kind of thing a PI would be hired for. The DSA probably has a dedicated team of private investigators or people who do that work, you know, who moonlight as PIs, who do this work for them, you know? You need like a crack team of investigators to look over people. Hey, this guy looks promising, look over him, that kind of thing. It's, you know, it's their job. Memes aside, abolishing the Senate as an official position is a bit goofy. I understand that it is a little bit goofy as like a point of advocacy from potentially, I mean, a senator, from an elected representative, but I think it's actually vital to defend that as a national platform. I think the Senate needs to be abolished. The Senate is an objectively anti-democratic institution. It is not good. It does not. It is so like in a practical sense, it skews things massively towards like biases people towards rural states, which is bad because they tend to have a lower population. It's very undemocratic. You know, you can win the Senate with like a quarter of the people in the country voting for you or less. It's just structurally bad at doing what it's supposed to do, you know? It is time. I think that we need to come up with a new constitution. We have the oldest functional constitution in the world, and it shows. Our Congress doesn't do anything. We've basically loopholed our way into like complete executive power. Congress doesn't do anything. The fact that you can just pork ride bills, it's all pork barrel politics top to bottom. Congress is extremely ineffective. Like, it's genuinely a bad institution. It's bad at doing the things it's supposed to do. This isn't even just like a lefty position. I think defending the Senate is defending, as far as I'm concerned, Jeffrey Epstein. Defending the Senate isn't even really about defending any specific set of political positions. What you're defending is the rot itself. You're defending the ineffectiveness of Congress. You're essentially acknowledging that liberalism has failed, that liberalism offers people no new answers, and you have no better ideas, so the only thing we can really do is like trim up the edges of the garden and watch as the world burns. Just totally unworkable. I think the only real reason that like it's not a more popular position, the abolition of the Senate, is because people aren't brave enough to say it. They can't imagine a transformed world. But things like removing the Senate, this would have been child's play to the founding fathers. 250 years ago, the idea of these big transformational changes, hell, it was less than a century ago that Italy voted on whether they wanted to be a republic or a monarchy. Big transformational changes to political systems are possible, and if you argue otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, you're riding with Jeffrey Epstein. You're in favor of neoliberalism being the vice that clamps us into a position of ineffectiveness and rot as we sink down to the bottom. It's like you're binding us so we cannot move, we can't escape, we can't swim to the surface. We just sink and sink and sink and sink and sink. Okay, but prison abolition's insane? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Yeah, no, that's true. What about open borders? The problem with open borders as a slogan is that I have no fucking idea what it means. Like, anyone who believes in a welfare state has to believe in a census, and in order for a census to work, you need to rigorously track who is in and out of the country. By open borders, do we mean like literally anyone can just walk in, like the way it was back in the 1800s? Like you could just walk up from Mexico and start a life in a town, and it's like, oh yeah, I live here? Or is it like a more permissive immigration structure? It's very important, in my opinion, that we keep track of everyone who lives here, because I think that's necessary for social democracy to function. I do understand there have to be some reasonable limits on immigration, because the world is just a lot more complicated than it used to be. Like, it used to be you just had people kind of wander up, and, you know, if they lived, they lived. If they died, they died, whatever else. But if nowadays it'd be like, wouldn't it be like actually really destructive for like 10 million people to move up, like Venezuelans or whatever, from the southern border with basically no oversight or like management of their movement? Yeah, it'd be pretty bad. Just logistically, it'd just be really, really difficult. They would settle into slums along the southern border. You all know that, right? If a bunch of poor people were allowed to come into the United States as immigrants and they were accepted in with basically no oversight or management from the federal government, they would basically just form massive slums in, you know, El Paso, San Diego, whatever else, and it would be like really, really, really bad, like just for them too. So I think that like there does need to be a great deal of direct management over immigration, but I think that the system in America has to be much more permissive, for sure. Yeah. Do you really think that as a long-term goal? Do you think prison abolition is insane? I have never heard a convincing argument for the abolition of prisons outside of like a return to mob justice, which I think is bad. Like the idea that you can just exile a rapist from one town so they go to another and then rape more people. No, I don't believe this. If you mean like the abolition of private prisons or whatever, then yeah, sure. But that's not prison abolition. That's private prison abolition. That's a different thing. I'm totally in favor of massive amounts of prison reform. I am in favor of the reform of prisons, a reform so substantial that they basically are unrecognizable compared to what they are today. Like a degree of reform so substantial that it would transform, in the long run, it would transform our understanding of what rehabilitative justice even looks like. But the abolition of prisons, no. I think that like it's again, it's just a slogan. It's slogan politics. Let's not argue the slogans, you know? I feel like getting too in the weeds arguing the technical definition of punchy like bumper sticker slogans is kind of like what people did with the Black Lives Matter thing. Like the point of Black Lives Matter is that there's the implication that society values them less, and you're arguing against that. But then it's like, okay, well, are you implying they matter more, or like, well, people already knew they matter? It's like, why are we arguing? The sentiment behind the bumper sticker is what we're arguing for. The point of the slogan is that it fits in the bumper sticker. I don't expect every protester to shout out like a treatise of 4,000 words where they describe exactly what policy they want implemented. I understand that sometimes you got to truncate that shit.